Man, I'm so depressed. We overheated yesterday and I'm not sure what the problem is. Lost all our antifreeze somewhere. Antifreeze all over the front of the motor. I'm gonna have to check and see what's going on. I hope I can get it fixed and we can get back on the road again. We've only gone like just about 2,000 miles.
Well, I'm getting right into it. I don't think it's going to be so bad.
Well, we can see the alternator's all covered in antifreeze. It's not charging right now either. I'm hoping that's just the belt being too greasy. But what's happened is this hose here has got up against the serpentine belt and worn its way through. I'm going to have to replace that hose. Hopefully I can do that without too much problem. Well, I can clearly see the leak now. There it is. The belt cut through the hose. The antifreeze sprayed out all around. I just hope the alternator's not shot. That's my new alternator. I'll wash it off with water and hopefully we'll be okay. Well, I picked up the hose that I needed and some cable ties. If we would have had one cable tie on that hose, keeping it away from the belt, we wouldn't have had this problem at all. But anyway, that's here nor there. Gonna get working on it now. Got a little mat here. Gonna use our dishes bucket to drain the coolant that runs out. First thing I'm gonna do is
I lubricated the end of the hose, put the hose clamp on there, and shoved it onto the barb where it goes onto at the top.
It's a little bit of a tight spot to work in here, but it's not all that bad.
This hose is for the throttle body.
Changing the head gasket or something that I thought I might be up to. I was really worried about this. I didn't know what it could be. Okay, that's on nice and snug. Now I'm going to think about my routing for this hose.
It's a pretty tight fit, but I got it on.
This happening never again. I didn't want to have to pull this. It's just going to make a better installation.
I decided to take the air box off to make it easier to access everything so I could do a better job of routing the hose.
I don't know about you, but I'm tired of pulling this thing off and on. Let me tell you. And of course, my 10 mil is missing, the short 10 mil, so I have to use this one. Gonna need to get one.
With the air box out, it's much easier to see where to put the hose. I wanted to be very careful with the hose routing so this problem doesn't occur again. I think I spent more time routing the hose than anything else on this job. If there's one thing I hate, it's having to do something over because of a silly thing that I did. So I'm routing the hose. I tried 2 or 3 different ways until I found what I liked the best to keep a lot of real estate between that hose and that serpentine belt. I didn't want to saw through another hose. The fellow at the counter didn't think he had a long enough piece of hose for that, and I thought I would just block it off with a couple bolts and clamps and leave it like that. This is far better because it's fixed for good now. I used a lot of cable ties too. Miss Kitty was thinking, this is taking an awful long time. Why don't you hurry up and we can get on the road again?
Well, there you can see where the belt cut right through that hose. There's another mark there where it was cutting through. It was touching in a couple places. I've tied it down really well now. It's not going to happen again. Now I'm going to filter the antifreeze through a coffee filter.
The coffee filter, even with the clips and vice grips holding it in place, was just incredibly slow, so I decided to use a microfiber cloth instead. That worked much faster.
Well, before I put the air box back on, I'm going to wash everything off. The alternator's just covered in antifreeze. I hope it's going to be all right. Wasn't getting any charging, but that could just be because of belt slippage and so on. If I have to change the alternator, I'm not going to be happy. Okay, everything is safely routed away from the belts and anything that could cause a problem. Well, I got it all back together now. Coolant's burped, so we're going to add a little fresh water. That belt's going to be chirping for a while, I'm afraid.
It's all working perfectly now, thank goodness. I noticed the heat gauge going up in time and didn't cause a serious problem. Now let's get back to making some wonderful photographs. That's why we're here.